Caravaggio was a badass, the rebel of 17th century art. Yet he produced these incredibly inspirational religious pieces of artwork, explaining my rather anachronistic music choice. This life-size painting by Caravaggio in 1601 portrays a biblical scene from the New Testament. After the crucifixion of Christ, his disciples Luke and Cleopas were walking down a road on the way to Emmaus when this third man joined them. However, it wasn't until supper that evening when this third man blessed the bread, broke it, and gave it to them that he was realized as this resurrected Christ before vanishing in front of their eyes. And it's this moment that Caravaggio catches, this moment of realization. Both of the disciples clearly expressing their astonishment. You have Luke on the edge of his seat, pushing back as though about to stand up, and Cleopas with his arms spread out wide. Both these areas of the painting pushing out into the viewer's space, creating this intense and inviting drama. And then there's the innkeeper who stands to the side of Jesus, still relaxed, not realizing this miracle happening in front of his eyes. I grew up in London, which meant I was fortunate enough to have all these great galleries right on my doorstep. My favorite being the National Gallery in Trafalgar Square, which houses 3 of the Caravaggios. And they show his progression as his life as an artist. The first one, Boy Bitten by a Lizard, then Salome receiving the head of John the Baptist, and of course, my beloved Supper at Emmaus. The gallery, free admission, open to anyone and everyone, which I think is so important nowadays, especially with a gallery like that, because you never know what is going to inspire the art of the next generation. Anyway, I didn't know what it was or why, but they would always catch my eye compared to the paintings surrounding it. And you can see other people seem to be drawn to it as well. And I didn't fix this, just random picture of the National Gallery website. And it wasn't until I started studying history of art that I realized that what the specific elements and the techniques that Caravaggio used that drew me in so much, and indeed drew others in, it was his creation of this dramatic lighting, this theatrical lighting, entering from above, representing the hand of God, the light of God. It comes in, it illuminates the face of Jesus, and indeed the other important areas of the painting. It was these same aspects, as well as its strong religious theme, that captured the attention of cardinals and popes over 400 years ago. 400 years ago, and his paintings were still having the strong effect as they are today. It was the eye of Cardinal Francisco de Monte, I mean, you can tell where these people are from, that was especially caught by Caravaggio's paintings. And it was this man who really got Caravaggio's success ball rolling. It introduced him into the cardinal's circle of acquaintances, where he received his first public commission, making him a celebrity pretty much overnight. However, he never conformed to his new status as this successful artist in 17th century Rome. He would still swagger about, sword by his side, which was still very illegal in those days, just as guns are now, and cut off the tongue of anyone who insulted his art. Ciriaco Mattei was the patron for Supper at Emmaus. He was an Italian nobleman, a close friend of Caravaggio, and also one of the most prolific art collectors of his time. His paintings inspire, intrigue, and delight generation after generation with his bold and exuberant compositions. That is what made him stand, but what is it that made him stand out from other artists at that time? And why did patrons choose him over someone like Caravaggio? This is the assumption of the Virgin, and there's a lot going on in his paintings. There's a lot more people. He has multiple little cherubs, and it's like it's being painted in this completely different world. Caravaggio has this different effect. He creates it as though it's in our world, this realistic atmosphere of a dark room in an inn down a back alley in Emmaus. He creates a naturalistic shadowed background by mixing a green and red or a red and blue to create this earthy tone. Caravaggio definitely inspired me as an artist, But then I like to think who inspired him, and indeed who inspired the rest of the 17th century artists. It was the great Raphael. He set a standard, and a great standard at that. This is the Transfiguration. You can see the aspects that they've taken. There's the angles that the figures are positioned at to include the viewer and draw them in, and also the lifelike foreshortening. It's especially seen in the man in the lower left-hand corner, which shows a strong resemblance to Cleopas in Supper at Emmaus. They push out, almost leaving pictorial space, and they have the same sort of layering of drapery. I know it's a completely different time period, but Picasso said a good artist copies and a great artist steals. And that's exactly what Caravaggio does. He's stolen the best elements from Raphael. He's made it his own and made it revolutionary. There were other versions of the Supper at Emmaus before this, but none even compared to Caravaggio. One by Jacopo Bassano and another by Titian. They all have these vast backgrounds. They have mountains, houses, they include more figures, they have animals. It's very busy, quite cluttered. Caravaggio scraps all of that, and he goes down to the bare necessities of what is really important. He did something different, and that is what really got him noticed. It's a spotlight effect. This cinematic lighting, it reflects off the table and illuminates the areas of importance. Unlike the other versions of Supper at Emmaus, Caravaggio puts a lot of detail into the still life at the table. The chicken, it looks good. And the fruit, it all looks fresh. I personally want to be sitting at that table. And that's the feeling that Caravaggio creates. It's like we are. There's even a space left for the viewer. It's like it's saying, pull up a seat. And that's part of the basis for my passion for this painting. Every aspect stresses the inclusion of the viewer. There's also a deep religious symbolism shown here. The shadow of the fruit creates the image of a fish, which has a strong relation to his efforts in the Counter-Reformation. His extraordinary influence went global. You can see in these paintings, one by Velázquez and another one by Rembrandt, both exemplifying Caravaggio's shadowed background and specifically lit areas. There's a huge resemblance in Rembrandt's painting with this lit table illuminating the figures surrounding it. He wasn't only popular in the high-class circle of Rome, but also within the general public. And that's because it's exactly who he painted, the everyday people of Rome. He inspired the everyday Roman Catholic people, reassuring them of their faith by showing them Christ appearing to people just like them in their everyday life. He doesn't idolize them. He paints them down to every detail, down to the dirt behind their fingernails and the wrinkles on their forehead. He often painted from life and very quickly, often with little preparation. There's a story about Caravaggio found from a legal document from his landlady trying to sue him because he was insistent on working from natural light. He used to bash holes in walls and ceilings of the apartments. So you can kind of tell why the landlady wouldn't have been too happy about that. However, it was this unique effect that he insisted on so much and that lasted throughout the years and made its way into the 21st century. You can see the relation through theatre and film, and these two examples especially, Blade Runner and The Third Man. These stills from the films look as though Caravaggio could have painted them himself. And I'm not saying that the idea or the inspiration came straight from his 17th century paintings, but I just think it's had this domino effect throughout and has stuck. This is the main reason why viewers today are so drawn to Caravaggio's paintings, because subconsciously they can relate. It's like we have this gravitational pull towards what we know. That's why I label him as revolutionary. My passion for this painting lies not just within its appearance or within the rebellious character of the man who painted it, but with what it added to Rome, opening up a completely different side to religious art, inspiring people from the past, present, and I'm sure will continue in the generations to come. Truly, truly revolutionary. Thank you for listening.
Going first is tough, and I think ending is equally hard. So Hannah and her Caravaggio 17th century badass tongue cutter certainly was a great and interesting kind of start. I've also written down "Here Comes Death." Is that what the music was? What was the? Here comes the boom. Here comes the boom. Okay. I thought your description of this whole the theatricality of the lighting, I thought that was really, really good. I also enjoyed that moment where you were conscious of us being seated and that you were drawing us into the painting by saying, seems as if Caravaggio was inviting us to join the table, pull up a seat. I kind of thought that was very conscious of us as opposed to conscious of yourself. And I think you very clearly made your point that you think Caravaggio is truly revolutionary. So congratulations. Okay.